久しぶりだな、麦わら。
All right, guys, we have Porkus here. He took home the store regionals at Galaxy Games. So let's talk through the deck profile here and just matchups in general and just some tech choices. So I'll kick it off to you just to talk through overall how you feel after winning the Katakuri, what your matchups are, how the day went.
Yeah, so first match was a Bonnie that was pretty tough. I think I'm favored. I lost a dice roll, I believe, but it's, I run a lot of Brooks and geckos are geckos. Second match was a Nell. Nell, if you know how to play it, it should be free, and I saw my top end. It was awesome. Third was a Perona, and luckily for me, I high rolled. I got on my top end. They only saw one, and 4 Black Yellow Luffy, the toughest matchup of the day. I saw it. He saw his sabos. I rushed him down. That's the only way you can beat him. And then I had a mirror for 5th round. And that was also this equally as tough. He saw stage. Recovering from that was nuts, to say the least. And last was RP Law, and I literally saw the nuts. I saw 2 sabos in opening hand, 2 geckos, and I just kept seeing 2Ks, so I just blocked out until I just ran him over, And this deck is really actually optimized to beat RP Law because of the 3 Brooks. I value counter, so I'm not running the super 6-cost Brooks, which are great in some matchups, but I think consistency is the most important thing.
So then, let's get into the actual deck itself. So you took Lucci here today, so we're going to pan down to the deck. So let's just talk through each of the cards. I think Force Fandom is generally a known and obvious commodity. It's your CP searcher, so I don't think we need to spend too much time on that. In general, one thing that stands out to me is the choice for 8 2Ks. So I see you have your 4 Khalifas, 2 Subarus, 2 Kakus. If you want to just talk maybe a bit on your 2K count and just your choice, your split between the 2 Subarus and 2 Kakus.
Yeah, I mean, I think I need at least 8, right? The Helmeppo is the high roll card. Because I know so much trash, I like to see it. And Suru, I think the split is, I need a counter, right? With Lucci especially, you can brick so hard. But I think one of the most important cards actually for that is Khalifa, right? Because playing Khalifa on 4 is fine, in my opinion. And because I play 4 Rebecca's, I'm constantly seeing it, right? And I'm constantly reoccurring Brooks and that's, and once you get to your 8 or 9 down turn and this meta revolves highly around the top end, I'm fine with just 1K counter, 2K counters. I like to scare my opponents and drop the 4 Lucci on curve, and they have to just answer it. Even if I'm breaking in the beginning, it's fine because with Moria, with Rebecca, I can rig her 2Ks, like nothing.
And how crucial do you think having Helmeppo at 2 is as opposed, because I see some lists cutting it down to 1, some testing the split between Spandine and Helmeppo. I know you have the 2-2 along with the 3 Brook split.
I think it's important because I value my Brooks, right? So I always want Brook to hit if I don't see Lucci. I think this deck really falls apart if you can't remove anything. And it also falls apart if you brick, right? So I like to think that the 1K counters are just as important as the 2Ks, especially in this deck, right? Some people run the 0 cost because they run so many high ends, but playing Brook on 3 is fire. Playing Helmeppo Brook on 5 is fire. I can still cheat out going first, and because this deck hates going first. Lucci in general just hates going first.
All right, so then if we talk mostly about the top row here, I think the 2 Spandine is just an obvious necessity to cover up your, to help your Rebecca play. And then we talked about the 4 Khalifas. 4 Lucci's is obviously a staple. I see some people cutting it to 3, but your point, we have 4 Rebeccas and 4 Luccis here. I think the 4 Rebeccas is maybe a point where I see some people cut it to 3. You said you value the consistency, having it 4 at 4?
Yeah, exactly. Like I even think about maybe cutting the Sabo to 2 and just putting in another Brook. But Sabo, you know.
I will say I'm a Sabo Coper, so cutting it to 2 is a bit blasphemous to me.
Oh no! It's just because I have the 4 Rebeccas, you know.
No, I see that. I also see some people tacking in some Borsalinos, but you chose, I guess, the consistency of having 4 Rebecca.
Yeah.
And then one other card that I want to talk through here that's pretty controversial, at least in my opinion, is the Nightmare Luffy. You chose to run this over the 6-cost Brook. I know you said 6-cost Brook is somewhat of a brick with a no counter, but what are your thoughts on Nightmare Luffy being when attacking and having counter versus Brook being a brick but being able to have the higher reach of the 4 cost and being on play?
I think the Black Yellow Luffy matchup is just too hard, and like your answer is Nightmare Luffy or the 6-cost Brook, but that's like literally in one matchup. And every other matchup that it does well against, you know, green, all the other, you're favored anyway. And having an extra 2 1Ks, it's I think invaluable. I think that if you think you can high roll in too many rounds and get the Brook build and run to 0 cost, that's fine, but most people then don't run stage. And I value stage too. I think if you see stage against most matches and you go second, it's hard to beat Lucci. And especially if it's consistent, right? Unless you brick, which I don't want. Yeah.
All right. The next card here we have Sabo. I know you said you're thinking you may cut that down to 2. How did that perform for you today? In general, I guess, what matchups do you find it valuable in outside of the mirror or just black in general?
Honestly, I played Sabo maybe once in the Enel match.
Okay.
And, you know, it's cool, you can secure a win, it's great, but this deck is such a combo deck, right? Like, I always would rather play Kaku, I'm always popping something. Again, I'd rather play Brook Helmeppo, or even Rebecca just to recur a 2K, right? Oh, and actually, I played Nightmare Luffy twice just vanilla, and it one against green and one against the NL player, and that was helpful just to pop, you know, those little 2Ks, 2 costs that can recur them into life or whatever, or you know, the I Am Samurai thing.
Then we have 3 Kakus here. I see most lists running this anywhere between 2 to 4. I run it at 3 myself, but just in general, if you want to talk through your choice for your Kaku split, and if you found that helpful at all today, does it help your going first curve?
It helps my going first curve. Again, I have so many options for 5. Nightmare Luffy, if that's the worst case scenario, but usually Kaku, even just swinging 6 and then Lucci to get the brick out of my hand is also fine. So 3 is just because 5 is overcrowded for me in this deck.
Okay. And then top end, I don't think we need to spend too much time on the 4 geckos. That's pretty self-explanatory, as is the Tempest Kick or the better Great Eruption.
Yes.
So let's just talk through, I guess, your top end split between your Ishos and your Sabos. I see a lot of people now cutting Sabo down to 1 or going over to Stussy, given the amount of green and blue that we have in this meta. Just in general, I know Isho is more so for your Black Yellow Luffy and NL matchups, but just you want to talk through 2-2 or...
I think Isho is the most important card in this deck. I think this meta, everyone's hoarding cards. I think I won maybe 3 of my matches because I either took an Asa or a Yamato, something. I took one of those big costs. I took a 2K and a kid out of someone's hand. I took 2 geckos out of the BY Luffy. This meta, you need to play Isho, I think, and the 2 Sabos. I tried Stussy for a while, but even with this build, obviously I brick, Lucci. I went against Law, I played 2. It's hard to recover from 2 Sabos against Law. And I think in general this deck is optimized against Law because of the Brooks. But I think Sabos is overpowered. And the reason I run 2 is the same reason I run Stage. I think if I see either one, it's fine.
And so yeah, that's the last card we have here. We have a 3 of Stage. I see that most people either cut it completely, run it at 3 or 4. If you want to talk about your split, if you think you may need to bump it up to 4, or if you thought 3 is sufficient.
3 is sufficient. I had it for 4 for a really long time, but again, it was too bricky, and I saw it too often. And the reason that I again have 2 Sabos at 2 instead of like 1 or something is because either I see stage or I see Sabo. Either way, I'm if I'm in a losing position, I can recover. Having the split between them at 5, and obviously that's only if I don't see Moria, which I always just obviously want to see. But yeah, that's my deck.
All right, and then I guess we talked about maybe changing the 1 Sabo. Are there any other changes that you may make moving forward, or what are your thoughts?
It's either another Brook for the 2 Sabo, or it's another Kaku for the 3rd Sabo. I'm not really sure right now. Again, I like the consistency here. I think this deck is really hard to pilot. Just so much math, right? No matter what. I think that's it for me.
All right. Well, last thing we have, any shout outs, any Instagram or anything that you want?
Yeah, shout out to at Rolando Chusan. I'm an actor. Porgus, you know, that's my name. So maybe one day we'll get there. We'll get there in the live action, baby. Matt Owens, if you're watching, how many other actors do this for you?
All right, guys, you will find his socials linked in the description below. And if you want to quickly show off the Katakuri for the camera.
Yes, sir.
That is such a pretty card.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone, for joining. And congrats to you for taking the win.
Sorry, one more thing.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Really quickly, I shout out to Galaxy Gaming for hosting an amazing tournament. Shout out to all the great players. Pedro and Andrew, they were the BY Luffy and the Mirror. Like those 2 were rock stars. Everyone I played against, but those 2 specifically were wild. And yes, and all the other locals, Game Guys and Astral, I love them.
All right, well, wave bye.
Thank you.
All right, guys, hope you enjoyed the deck profile. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.